Music is an integral part of life in Portland.
We came to Portland on tour, and this place was just so supportive and so full of culture and so rich with all kinds of art and things like that, that we just knew we had to leave where we were and come up here.
The community and the essence of creativity that flows with abundance in the people here. It's kind of like a utopian creative environment.
It's a time where you can use Portland as sort of your stage, whether it be music, film, art, fashion. It's your town, and it's the perfect place to do it.
There aren't major music industry institutions here, so we all kind of have to do it with our own steam. And Mississippi Studios certainly is a core part of that as one of the most important venues here in this town.
This is Mississippi Studios Grand Central, the brain, in this giant spacious office. Musicians work here. Kyle's a singer, songwriter. Typhoon is his band. I still do it sometimes. Driving down Mississippi, I saw this building for sale. This was in 2002. We sort of built the front part, had a recording studio in here, and then eventually we knocked down that house and built the main room that all the music happens in now.
Come a little closer than you see. Come on, come on, come on. Things ain't always what they seem to be.
When it was a street church, these were the seats that they had pulled out of an old theater somewhere. So when we built the new building, we built the sound room with all non-parallel walls, so the sound would bounce around the room nicely as opposed to bouncing and having, echoes and nodes and slapbacks.
Being in a touring band makes it difficult to hold any kind of job. I always thought it was like the best small venue in town. So yeah, I can still say that. I thought that before I worked here.
Over the years I've played here a whole bunch, not only in the configuration it is now, but in the earlier configuration, and actually once they did a bunch of one-song performances by acts here, like in the middle of a construction zone, and that was fun too.
I mean, the idea of having musicians build it wasn't some grand philosophy at the time. These were just the people that I knew, and they worked really hard, and somebody would always come along who I'd met out in the field or on the road who would be good for it. It's a headache to coordinate all these touring musicians, but then they come back with great ideas for the venue, and they come back saying, hey, you could do this differently, and then you could have this. So we kind of like send them out, and they come back, and we learn, and that's the ongoing ideal. But it wasn't part of the development plan. It was just happened that way.
We book a lot of shows here that are nationally touring bands, but there's also almost all the support acts are local, and we do a lot of record release for local bands.
There's a lot of music acts that come through, and it's not really a particularly big venue, so there's not a lot of big names that pull huge crowds, but smaller, more obscure bands that end up pulling huge crowds because of just people in Portland want to see a little more underground music.
We can go start a fire, show our folks that we're trying to be
Black Book Guitars is very unique. It's the smallest guitar shop in Portland. Over 90% of the instruments here are vintage. It's great being on this street right next to Mississippi Studios, seeing all the touring musicians come through. So it's a treat for me, especially when they pick up guitars and start playing.
Mississippi Studios, that's a big one that we want to play. It's kind of a place every band has to play in the community.
It feels way more intimate in that space, which is just kind of a rare thing. It's a weird gem in that way.
I feel like Mississippi Studios keeps their finger on the pulse too. They kind of have like a lot of hit bands that people enjoy listening to coming and playing there.
There's a place that isn't just a venue for people to come play, but has roots in the music community here.
Mississippi Studios has added a lot to the neighborhood. Even before Bar Bar was here, the venue was here, which brought in a lot of people. Once Bar Bar became a thing, then the whole street just sort of started blowing up. Just business after business started opening.
The thing I've always appreciated about Mississippi Studios is that I feel that Jim and the folks who are behind the place opened it with a dream that would serve the music, that would serve the musicians, that would serve the audiences. I feel that that dream is still what's at the core of it, that they continually look at it to try and make the experience better, to make the sound better, to make it more of a community place. And that's rare in the modern music industry.
Every lover in the sky, what sky? They will escape. across the starlight with rainbows watching.